appreciate that. That's funny. All the things you did at WHAS and Wacky for 10 years, it's always snow sharks. Mike Combs, anybody know, you know Mike Combs? Mike, if you don't know Mike, he taught me into doing this. I was in retirement, and Mike said I should come do it. He's the kind of guy, actually, if Mike had been at the Last Supper, he would have been the one to turn to Jesus and said, "You gonna eat all that bread?" And so he drugged me kicking and screaming out of retirement. But I'm happy to do that. For one thing, anybody here close to retirement? Anybody thinking about that soon? Nobody? You guys, you're young. If you ever get to this point, I'll give you a little hint. Hobbies. You have to have a lot of hobbies, keep yourselves busy, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. I've got two friends who help me out. Both are retired chemical engineers, and we're working on a project right now. I don't know if it's going to be helpful to you, but we're trying to change whiskey, beer, and wine into urine. Now you laugh, but it's going very well. When I was first approached about this, I was thinking first, there must be a mistake. Is there a Gary Burbank, to talk to educators, is there a Gary Burbank that has a PhD? Is there a Gary Burbank that has a GED? I quit in the 11th grade when my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, caught up. And I remember that day. Most of what I'm going to tell you is true stuff. Thrown in with some lines back to 1979. Marjorie, I've got a few of those that I wrote back in those days. I remember being in history class, and my first mistake was I had a book open. And that wasn't good. It was a notebook. And at one point I looked up at a teacher standing right in front of me, and she said, "Okay, young man." And she reached out and snatched Batman, the comics, out of the notebook. And she said, "When was the fall of Rome?" September. To the office. And I told her, I said, I can't go back to the office because they said they don't want to see me there anymore. And I wasn't a bad kid. I was just, I just didn't say the right things at the right times, maybe when I should. And so you'll understand when I started thinking about talking to members of the education community, it took me back so completely that I started working on this speech 25 minutes ago. And I guess when it came to school, I was definitely not an addict. I was more of a casual user. And I think my teachers, they must have felt kind of like the old Jewish man. You may have heard that story, or may have seen this, in fact. It's not a story. This really happened. Apparently, CNN heard about this old guy who had gone to the Western Wall to pray every day for 60 years. And the reporter from CNN accosted the guy in an interview and asked him, and I saw this, he was a Hasidic-looking old fellow, and asked him, "How long have you been coming to the wall to pray?" "I've been coming every day for 60 years. "What do you pray for?" "I pray for peace between the Muslims and the Jews. I pray for all the world wars to end. I also pray for the children to grow up happy, safe, and well-educated." The reporter said, "And how do you feel after doing this for 60 years?" "Like I'm talking to a Fakata wall." You can look that word up, it's okay. It's Hebrew. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, where all the churches have a picture of Elvis's Last Supper on the wall. My family's from Mississippi, where the state flower is a 12-gauge shotgun. But I've lived in Kentucky long enough, in many years, enough to see that some of the obstacles that teachers, administrators, and members of the board like yourselves have to overcome in this whole talking to the wall department. As administrators and members of the board, you worked hard to help teachers deal with multiple learning styles. I think it was mentioned earlier, individualized instruction, attention deficit, standardized tests, and a whole host of educational issues. And you've come up with some very innovative ways to deal and maybe enable teachers to reach students And your award for all of this work, going back to 1979 or even further back, it culminated in something the George W. Bush administration called No Child Left Behind. That's a wonderful, admirable idea. No child left behind. But let's, right now, actually call it what it seems to be. Move every idiot forward. Thank you. Don't go crazy. No, but wait, in some cases, move every idiot forward is the right thing to do. I have a friend who moved to Pike County from Louisville. But I say that right. Anybody from Pike County here? Okay, Pike County, right? Moved to Pike County. And after being there for a while, being from Mississippi, I can relate. He said that in Pike County, he said, redneck, man, they got pit bulls that could suck a mailman's head through a 3-inch pipe. I can relate from where I'm from. He said they turned on PBS and they were carrying a tractor pull. You can send in for a taped transcript if you wanted one. Assigned students in his class to watch Nova. And they said, oh, that's great. Show about old Chevys. And he had to move every idiot forward in that situation. Said one kid raised, he was talking to the class and he said, okay, if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to raise your hand. One kid said, no, you don't. I'm going to tell you a story in a minute that relates to that. Another example. Now let's go to my high school back in Memphis. There was a true story again. A kid named Harry Norton, one of my old friends, always trying to be funny. He kind of fit into the redneck category of Harry was like, that is a joke going around about, what's the famous last words of a redneck? Hey, y'all, watch this. Well, Harry was kind of like that. Harry one day got two alligator clips and had some wire to the end of it, and he clipped them on his nipples. And he told me to hook it up to the battery. Well, I kind of knew what might happen, but I'm thinking dangerous, funny. I'm going for funny every time. So I hooked it up to the battery, and it was funny. And maybe that was one child that should have been left behind. But the idiot who hooked him up to the battery, they moved me right forward. And after they got his heart restarted and raced him to the ER, he was okay, but his parents, true story, sued the Board of Education because Harry wasn't adequately warned about the dangers of electricity. So you got a lot to do here. Most of us remember our first day of school, and I wish I could forget. This is in a book about my life written by Greg Hord from Fraser Orange Publishers, if you ever get a chance, called Voices in My Head. And I tried to deny this, but he interviewed too many people. I was 6 years old, and by the way, in Memphis, Tennessee, they had 3 first grade classes. There was an advanced class, there was the normal class, and the slow first graders. And you know what they did? They called it slow. Wasn't anything special about it. It was slow. Okay. So I go register for school. They put me in the advanced class. And I felt pretty good about that. I'm in the advanced first grade class. 6 years old, my mother was so proud of me. I think they put me there because I had a high forehead. And I had a couple of weeks of kindergarten and something like that. And so I remember going to school. My mother was so proud. We didn't have a lot of money, but she went out and bought me a little sailor suit. And the sailor suit, it was short pants to here, right? And Mom, I remember she took and she buttoned